Today's lesson is on invasive species. Make sure you take notes and don't forget to do the task at the very end of the video because it will be fair game on any quiz or unit test. What exactly is an invasive species? Well, before we can get into that, I need to introduce what non-native species are. Non-native species are those species that establish themselves in an area outside of their natural range. So they're species that are not normally found in a particular area. Only when it begins to harm its new environment will it be considered as invasive. It's become a problem worldwide as global travel and trade increases, because then that increases the chances of it getting to an area where it wouldn't normally be found. After habitat loss, invasive species are the second greatest threat to biodiversity and a major cause of extinctions. There are some introduced species in Canada, and about 25% of all of our plants are introduced species, 181 insects that feed on woody plants, about 24 birds, 26 mammals, 55 freshwater fish, 2 reptiles. You won't need to know all of these specific statistics, but it's just interesting to know that a lot of the species we have within Canada aren't actually native to our country. In terms of how they get to this new area, they can arrive by land, air, and sea. Invasive species, they can hitchhike on goods, packaging materials, and transportation vehicles like planes, ships, and cars. They can also enter directly through trade in agricultural, horticultural, and pet industries. And only later are they discovered to be invasive, just because it takes time for that species to establish itself into its ecosystem, and it'll take time for it to kind of reproduce and have its population increase. And then when their population grows, that's when you'll see how it'll actually affect all the other organisms that are part of its food web. In terms of whether or not they're actually dangerous, not all non-native species have become invasive. Some don't cause harm and can actually be beneficial. So for example, domestic animals and crops. It's unclear what causes an introduced species to become invasive. It could be because there's a lack of natural predators and diseases, which can cause their population to grow unchecked. So for example, the pigeon that originated in Europe, whereas the bullfrog, it's native to some provinces, but it's actually invasive in British Columbia. That actually might be a really good test bonus question that I might ask you. So why don't you just Google why the bullfrog is invasive in British Columbia. Once an invasive species becomes established, it can damage the environment by preying on, parasitizing, or competing with the native species. Often, the damage caused can't be reversed. Some even kill humans and animals directly, like for example, the West Nile virus. In terms of how much it costs, money. In Canada, it's estimated that $7.5 billion is lost every single year from invasive forests and agricultural pests alone. This cost includes direct losses caused by the pests and the money that's spent trying to control them. Now we're going to elaborate more on one specific type of invasive species, which are the zebra mussels. Zebra mussels live about 2 years and they reach 3 centimeters in length. They can produce between 20,000 to 50,000 eggs in a season. Their larvae are released in the water and they swim to a suitable habitat where they then attach themselves to rocks, shells, or any hard surfaces. In about 1 meter squared, hundreds of thousands of these mussels can be found. So if you had an area that was 1 meter by 1 meter, you would find hundreds of thousands of these mussels in that small amount of space. Zebra mussels, they are active filter feeders and they can filter 1 liter of water a day. And so they can actually clean a lake or a river of its algae, plankton, and detritus, and the entire microscopic food supply for all the other organisms. And that's where they can be bad. So they can be good in the sense that they can clean a lake. However, they can over clean it and eat all of the food supply for the other fish. Zebra mussels can stick themselves to the surface with a kind of cement that's really difficult to get off. They'll grow in the shells of freshwater clams, and that will prevent the clam from being able to open up, and then it won't be able to take in water or nutrients. Zebra mussels will also grow and attach themselves to the hulls of boats, causing a lot of damage. They'll also grow on the inside and the outsides of pipes, blocking the flow. We're going to look at one specific case study of something that happened within the Rideau Canal waterway in Ontario. Your task is to Google one invasive species, so anything but the zebra mussel, and complete this mind map. So look up anything but a zebra mussel, find some basic information about it, research where it can be found, how you can identify it as that particular species, what are 3 environmental impacts, and what can be done to help out with the situation. So what are some things that people are doing to reduce the impact of that specific invasive species?